Chris, we're in a big tent at the Latitude Festival in Suffolk.
It's extraordinary.
Oh!
We're in a big tent. It's not raining, and the tent is actually full.
Full.
Because I've not been to Latitude before, and there's lots of sources of entertainment I've discovered in merely the first few hours of me being here.
Yeah.
And therefore, you can't help but fear as you walk around. In fact, my children were teasing me about this exact prospect, that maybe no one will turn up.
Yeah.
And it turns out people have.
Yeah, so thank you very much to everyone who's here. Before we dive into Newscast proper and the news, I thought we'd just do a little bit of a Latitude cast, first of all. So there's a lot of people for you to see here this weekend. Who's excited to see Sting? Chris,
Yeah.
did you hear you react there?
Yeah, you did.
Good.
I'm looking forward to Scouting for Girls, who are on not long after us.
Okay, we've got Scouting for Girls fans.
We'll make sure we're finished by then.
Does anyone know the performer who is performing this weekend, who's a singer, who's been on Newscast?
Ooh.
No, not Billy Bragg, no. Although he's welcome to come on, as long as he's balanced by somebody from the other end of the political spectrum eventually. Oh, the tension. It's Sigrid. Sigrid. And I always remember interviewing Sigrid from my cupboard at home, because it was during the COVID era, and I had COVID, and we did Newscast from my cupboard. So, but yeah, so I'll be hopefully seeing Sigrid in a more impressive environment than my cupboard. Right, let's get on and actually just record the episode of Newscast. So what we do before we, kind of, as you know from listening, before you hear the music and all the let's take me down in Downing Street, let's go have a tour, we do this little kind of bit of chatting beforehand, which we call the pre-intro, because it's before the intro. And so we thought this week, today, we'd maybe cross the streams, because you know this week we've been doing this gimmick where we get people to send in things that they've misheard on the news, like hearing school uniforms and thinking it was actually free unicorns. And we've been calling them malapropisms. Yeah? Because I thought that's what they were called, when you just say something wrong. No, because we've had a message from somebody. He's called Simon Nicol, and he's so appropriate for the setting we're in now, because he's one of the founding members of the folk rock group Fairport Convention. Any Fairport Convention fans? Yeah? Well, he listens to Newscast, and he had a little bit of feedback for us, which hopefully we can hear now.
Dear Adam et al., Simon from Canterbury here. Love the show. Now, Dickens' Mrs. Malaprop famously misspoke, confidently but mistakenly mangling both words and idioms. And when we mishear things others say, or particularly singers' lyrics, and repeat our own interpretation, that's really a mondegreen. "'Scuse me while I kiss this guy," instead of "'Scuse me while I kiss the sky." The term comes from misquoting the Scots ballad The Bonny Earl of Murray, where "They have slain the Earl of Murray and laid him on the green," becomes "They have slain the Earl of Murray and Lady Mondegreen." Keep on keeping on. I know I do.
Simon, thank you very much.
What was the term?
Mondegreen.
Mondegreen.
Mondegreen. So it's not a malapropism. It's when you mishear a song lyric or a soundbite by a politician, it's a mondegreen.
How do you spell mondegreen?
Mondegreen. Kind of as you'd expect, really.
Absolutely.
Has anyone in the tent brought us a mondegreen? We've been running this gimmick all week. Has anyone got one? A mishearing? Well,
Oh, front row here.
have you got one? Oh, you've got one from an actual mondegreen from a... Well, we are at a festival. Let's... Oh, I need to be careful about these speakers. Hello, what's your name?
Rob.
Sarah.
What's your mondegreen?
It's a Cure song, and I always used to think it was one flea, one flea, one flea flitting, and it is.
What? Oh, I can't remember. Wonderfully, 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 something or other.
Wonderfully pretty.
Well, I don't know, because you're way cooler than me, so my knowledge of Cure lyrics is very, very poor. But thank you for a real live mondegreen there. So, right, should we get on with a real live episode of Newscast? I think that means we will have some Newscast music.
Newscast.
Newscast from the BBC.
He has just compared me to the Fat Controller.
Did I say that?
I can't believe I said that. Next question.
This is all for the benefit of Earth.
I'm not personally a huge Sabrina Carpenter fan.
I don't think I'm being rude. I like landscapes.
Take me down to Downing Street. Let's go have a tour.
Blimey.
Hello, it's Adam on Newscast at the Latitude Festival.
And it's... And it's Chris also at the Latitude Festival, sitting on this kind of wicker sofa. And it's a British observation, this, Adam, but I feel like we're a bit too close.
Yeah, I am too close.
Do you think we should go into these seats? I think
No, for technical purposes, we need to sit this awkwardly
do we?
close.
Oh, right, okay.
Like we're on breakfast news.
I've got 40 minutes of this.
Don't worry, I'll squish right. I'm the same. I'll squish right in because this is the thing. Normally, I have to confess, Chris and I are not sat in the same place when we're doing Newscast. He's at Westminster in a cupboard, and I'm at a slightly bigger cupboard in a different BBC building. But
this is a whole new experience.
Yeah, and also we're going to be joined by a special guest. And she's just arrived over there, but we're going to park her there for a little bit.
Proper broadcasting royalty coming up.
And Suffolk royalty as well.
And indeed, yeah.
Oh, hang on, no, that would be the Princess of Wales. It's not Catherine. Although we are very grateful for the person who is here. Right, this is going swimmingly, isn't it? Just another 43 minutes. So the people who are standing around the edges of the tent, kind of outside, can you hear us okay? Okay, good. They're nodding vigorously. That's good. We want everyone to be included. Right. There's actually quite a lot of news, even though we're all here kind of like chilling out in the sunshine and about to go and join the queue for the halloumi fries and waiting for Sting. There's in the outside world, there's a lot of news happening. And so, Chris, the thing that we all woke up to on the news bulletins this morning was the start of the resident doctors' strike in England. And of course, resident doctors are what we used to call junior doctors.
Yeah, and there's a sense of deja vu in the air, isn't there? Because here we are with this junior or resident doctors strike in England, 5 days starting at 7 o'clock this morning. And you'll recall, you may have been inconvenienced by the strikes that took place, a little over a year ago. And in came the new Labour government of last summer with that promise to sort out industrial action, which they did at considerable expense. They felt that was justified in terms of getting doctors back to work, but also hoped, clearly, that it wouldn't happen again quite so quickly as it has. And here you have this debate that is becoming quite familiar now with the resident doctors and the British Medical Association, the Doctors' Union, making an argument that they have been historically underpaid, making an argument that if you go back to 2008, they have been considerably underpaid, and that the significant pay rise that they got over 2 years last year only does a certain amount to close that gap. And so they are doing the thing that a unionised workforce can do, which is to withdraw their labour. And you can hear pretty much from here, I think, the exasperation in Westminster within the government that it's come to this so quickly.
Well, yeah, Wes Streeting, the health secretary, was just on Sky News before we came into the tent, and he was saying the country will not be held to ransom. He can understand why patients are angry. And then also I thought what was the kicker was he's like, and other NHS workers who are working so hard will be angry about this. So obviously the government's trying to maybe like peel off the resident doctors from everyone else.
Yeah, and in that, I suppose what we're seeing is a classic confrontation playing out in public between a government and a trade union. What is novel, at least for now, in this is that the government is a Labour government. You know, for many years, particularly towards the tail end of the Conservatives' time in office, we saw a fair amount of industrial action and a real kind of deterioration in the relationship between various union leaders and the then government. And of course, we heard an argument from Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary for England, when he was the shadow Health Secretary, that the solution, he would say to his Conservative governing opposite numbers at the time, was to get in the room, get around the table and negotiate. Now, he did do that last summer, but it turns out from his perspective that arrangement has only sort of borne fruit for 12 months. And a five-day strike with the knock-on consequences that's going to have, with the tensions that it will place, no doubt, within the NHS and between different workforces within the NHS, is going to be interesting to observe. And then, of course, at the heart of it will be patients who are inconvenienced. And then, ultimately, as is always the case with any industrial action over and above the negotiations that go on between the government and the union leaders, is who maintains public opinion on their side. That ultimately determines the longevity of any industrial action. And I think probably the doctors last time round felt that they had plenty of sympathy, broadly speaking, on their side. The extent to which that is the case this time, I think, is perhaps a more open question.
And I think that kerplunk noise you heard was producer Schiller, who's got her laptop plugged in so we can play clips of the news. I think she just had a message. It wasn't someone saying, oh, they're shorter than I thought they would be in real life. I get that one quite a lot. Also, Chris, it's interesting looking at some of the potential solutions to the doctor strike, because the government's talking about what are other things you can do around resident doctors' lives to make their lives better. And one of the ideas being floated is, do you forgive their student loans?
Yeah.
But then, of course, that might solve that particular problem. But then everyone else who's got a student loan who thinks they're doing a job that contributes to society or is in the public sector might say, can you forgive mine too? So it solves one problem, but could create a whole load of others.
Yeah, there's two big contexts here going on, which newscasters, both listening in there with their earpods and listening here in the tent in Suffolk, will relate to. One is the challenge that the government faces in terms of the big picture economics, and as we know and report regularly on Newscast, they are difficult. There is no doubt they are difficult. And then there's the comparator that any other sector of the economy, public or private, will make with the lot of the doctors. So we've seen an element of the argument from Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, and others, seeing if they can find ways to ameliorate the concerns of the doctors that aren't directly related to their salaries. So a lot of the doctors make an argument, for instance, about the extent to which they're asked to move hither and thither around the country, the nature of the shift patterns, for instance, they have to work, etc., etc. Is there any space there for negotiation? But then, as you say, Adam, if they get into a conversation where they're finding alternative economic levers other than salary to try and satisfy the British Medical Association, quite clearly there's going to be a conversation that starts straight away around others. For instance, whether it be university tuition fee debt, or indeed anything else. And then at the heart of all of it, a tricky argument for the doctors to pull off, which is one where, relative to plenty, they are well paid, but they argue in relative terms that's declined significantly in the last couple of decades. And then, of course, you know, we're all at some point reliant on doctors as well, and that is clearly an element of the argument that they will and are making.
Right, I hope you're getting a real sense of being at the Latitude Festival, because you can hear about 5 different stages around us with like very loud bands on all at the same time, but that's great because it creates the festival vibe even if you're not here in the tent.
It's a whole new experience talking about the politics of the NHS with some backing music.
And it's not Shania Twain?
No.
Oh. She's not the special guest either. Just I keep really teasing like really mad people. Right. Oh, by the way, actually, now that we've got like loads of people here in the tent with us, has anyone had an appointment cancelled or postponed because of the latest strike? I'm just looking at. Someone's got their hand up over there. I won't pry into your private medical details. Don't worry. A couple of people, but actually not a huge load of people, which either means this is a very healthy audience that doesn't need much medical treatment, or actually maybe that stat I heard from an NHS trust boss this morning of 96% of appointments are still happening, maybe that rings true.
Yeah, and there's been a different strategy in how the NHS is seeking to cope with this particular strike versus some of the previous ones, which is to try and minimise the number of cancelled appointments, but with the danger, as some see it, that the doctors and medical staff that are still working are spread too thinly.
Right, next subject, and I'm sure there will be a reaction from the audience, which I will then have to balance for BBC impartiality, because we're going to talk about Donald Trump. Don't make me now cheer for Donald Trump so that we're balanced, but I think we know that lots of people did vote for him in America, so that balances that out. He is on his way here. Not to Latitude. I keep inviting so many people to this festival. It's because I'm having such a good time and you give me such a warm welcome. I'm like, come on down. I'm confused. Is Donald Trump here on holiday, or is he here to do business? Or actually, is he here to do his own business, which has actually nothing to do with being president and is owning a few golf clubs?
It's kind of a bit of all of the above, really. So, I mean, it has been described rather loosely as a private visit. Donald Trump, as you may just have noticed, he's a fairly public kind of guy. So he's going to be here in the UK. He's going to be arriving, I think, a little later today or first thing tomorrow morning, visiting a couple of his golf courses, Turnberry and Ayrshire, just to the southwest of Glasgow. And then he's opening a new golf course in Aberdeenshire. And then into the mix of that, and this gets you to the heart of the kind of the realities of diplomacy, which I know people like me can overdo the comparisons with our own families or our own colleagues, but I think in this instance it's kind of relatable. You know, if you are the Prime Minister and the President of the United States, who you've managed to build up a good working relationship with, tells you that he's coming on holiday to the UK, you can't really not go and see him. It would be entirely sensible, in the same way that if a relation was passing through your town for a couple of hours, you'd probably go and see them, because it'd kind of be rude not to.
We've got different policies on our distant relations, I think. Oops.
I won't pry. So the Prime Minister is going to go and see him in a couple of days, but it's one of those things where their relationship is pretty good. It's extraordinary, actually. It's one of the most extraordinary things of the last 12 months that a Prime Minister who could not be more different either as a personality or as a politician, or indeed his worldview, has built up a authentically working and warm relationship with a president who is wildly different in so many ways. But anyway, yeah, Donald Trump is coming, making these 2 visits within Scotland. So what do you do if you're Keir Starmer? You've got to go and see him. But I think Downing Street had hoped it'd be quite a low key kind of visit. But of course, you know, Donald Trump doesn't really do low key. It's not really the vibe, is it? It's not really the MO. For Donald Trump. But if you're Keir Starmer, do you really want to turn up in front of a bunch of people like me on the 9th hole of Turnberry with the president, who might then just brandish...
In a golf cart?
Yeah, who might then just brandish a 9-iron and say, you know, how's your drive or whatever? By all accounts, the Prime Minister doesn't play golf, and the president is a keen golfer. And then also from the Prime Minister's perspective, you've got the slight awkwardness, which I think he'll just have to sort of put up with, really. That kind of who's hosting who, because it's the president's golf course in the UK. So that's another aspect of all of this. But that meeting is going to go ahead. They are going to see each other in the next couple of days. And of course, all of this private visit is merely the warm up for the state visit that's coming up in 5 or 6 weeks' time in the middle of September, which will be quite a do.
Do you know what that's just reminded me of? Do you remember when Gordon Brown went to Camp David to meet George W. Bush? And George W. Bush did turn up in a golf cart. And Gordon Brown was there in his suit and tie, and he got in the golf cart. And then George W. Bush not only pulled off at full speed, but then basically did like a wheelie, like on the golf cart. And Gordon Brown's like, ooh, ooh.
You're reminding me now of
Gordon Brown?
Yes.
George W. Bush.
No, Gordon Brown. And what I think is, and our audience may be...
Yes, I think that's not correct.
Maybe better place to correct me if I'm getting my geography wrong here, but I think I have a Gordon Brown Suffolk anecdote.
Oh.
So I seem to recall, it overlaps a bit with your story of Donald Trump and Gordon Brown. I seem to recall that when Gordon Brown was Prime Minister, he was on holiday at some point in Suffolk. And what tends to happen when Prime Ministers go on holiday is they'll do one little appearance in front of a couple of photographers to mark the fact that they're on holiday, and then us lot leave them alone to have some time away. And I seem to recall there's a picture of Gordon Brown on a Suffolk beach in his suit,
yeah, which he just never took off, yeah. And then didn't he leave his holiday after 4 hours to deal with a terrorist attack or something? And he actually looked kind of relieved about not having to be on holiday anymore. Right, just a couple more minutes on Donald Trump, because I don't know if you've seen this amazing clip that was on the news last night, and it's all over social media this morning. It's Donald Trump chatting to Jay Powell, who is the chairman of the Federal Reserve, and who Donald Trump is annoyed with because he's not cutting interest rates fast enough. But they're touring a building site that is the new HQ of the Federal Reserve. And Donald Trump has got this letter in his pocket about how it's gone over budget. And Jay Powell reacts in a very non-sycophantic way, because we've got used to people sucking up to Donald Trump. Jay Powell does not suck up. Have a listen to this, and you'll hear the opposite of that.
It looks like it's about 3.1 billion. It went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that from anybody at the Fed.
Yeah, it just came out.
Our notes had it about 3.1 as well.
3.1,
3.2. This came from us?
Yes. I don't know who does that.
You're including the Martin renovation. You just added
our entire capital.
Yeah, you just added in a third building is what that is. That's a third building.
Well,
including
no,
the
but
Martin building.
it's a building that's being built.
No, it was built 5 years ago. We finished Martin 5 years ago.
It's part of the overall work.
But it's
So,
not new. We're well along, as you can see.
Nice to take these off every once in a while when we're not under too much danger. So, any questions?
Things the chairman can say to you today that would make you back off some of the earlier criticism?
Well, I'd love him to lower interest rates, but other than that, what can I tell you?
Well,
Now there's something about those hard hats, isn't there, that adds a certain thing to that. But yet another example of this, and I've seen this firsthand when I went out to Washington with the Prime Minister to meet the President at the White House for the first time, that Donald Trump is the master of stagecraft as statecraft. That the business of government that so often would take place away from the cameras happens in front of the cameras. Now, that's often to his advantage, and he is the circus master in so many of those environments. But then occasionally you get a moment like that, which which you just simply would not normally see playing out in front of the cameras. It's extraordinary.
let's just ask the audience here in Latitude, who can imagine Keir Starmer looking good in golf wear? Anyone? Yeah, a couple of people, yeah. Good, some +4s, is that what they're called?
I don't, search me.
You're not a golfer?
I enjoyed watching the Open on the telly last weekend,
yeah.
but I don't know anything about the kit.
Another story that happened yesterday, but which we didn't have time to cover on yesterday's newscast, there's so much happening kind of internationally, was the launch of this new party led by Jeremy Corbyn and Zarah Sultana, former Labour MPs. Can you tell me what this party is called?
No, and neither can they as yet. I mean, they have done some, what you might generously call a sort of rolling launch, I think, of this party. So what's happened over the last couple of weeks is that Zarah Sultana, who was elected as a Labour MP and then, to use the Westminster vernacular, had the whip removed and was sitting as an independent, she announces that she is going to resign as a Labour Party member, so her time in the Labour Party would be all over. And then a couple of weeks ago, out of nowhere, came this post on X in the middle of an evening in which she said she was setting up this new party with Jeremy Corbyn. And I was sitting in my office at Westminster when it happened, and there was a little flutter of excitement in newsrooms, which is, as there is in moments like this. And I said, hang on a minute, there's something missing here. Jeremy Corbyn, what's he got to say? And if he isn't saying anything, there's just something that tells me, I've kicked around and covering politics for long enough, so I think there might just be a little bit more to this than first appears. Well, it turns out at the time, Jeremy Corbyn sort of hadn't signed off on it. So this joint vehicle of the two of them only had one driver officially at that point. Anyway, fast forward a couple of weeks, and it is now up and running, Jeremy Corbyn and Zarah Sultana. It's an interesting proposition because there's no doubt that Jeremy Corbyn has a constituency of opinion that is very supportive of him. And he's a bloke in his 70s. Zarah Sultana also has a considerable following, particularly big following on TikTok, and is, for a politician, a youngish woman in her, late 20s, early 30s. And they both have an argument that says that Labour has drifted far too close, as they would see it, to the centre, that there is space, they think, for a party, as they would put it, authentically of the left. And so we see, yet again, another example of this fracturing of our politics, where an outfit, as yet without name, even if they could attract 4, 5, 6% of the vote, and there's been one or two opinion polls that suggest it might be higher than that, that could prove really significant when you have all of the parties now scrabbling around in the teens or the low 20s, Reform occasionally puncturing into the 30s. In other words, small percentage shifts could have an outsized influence now. So that was a long answer.
Well, no, it's a tangled tale. So this new party, which they're not called, their website's called Your Party, but they say they're going to have this conference to come up with a name. Has anyone here in this tent signed up to it? Have you flirted with them yet? Tumbleweed. Great, we're now the quietest tent in this whole festival. Right, please welcome to the stage our special guest for the last half of this episode of Newscast from the Latitude Festival. She's a regular here because she loves Suffolk and we love her. Martha Kearney. Come on! Hello. You're gonna be...
I'm so sorry I'm not the Princess of Wales.
Yeah, but then I realised she's Norfolk, isn't she? This is
She's
my
Norfolk.
terrible East Anglia knowledge.
Right across the other side of the River Waveney. It's a different country.
Great, so I've now caused a diplomatic incident in East Anglia. Great. Martha, I mean this in a nice way. What time did you get up this morning?
It was so lovely. 9 o'clock.
Whoa.
9 o'clock. As opposed to what you're talking about as my old life.
Yeah, I'm not just being a creep.
Which you get asked, if you're a Today presenter, you get asked this the whole time. In fact, a friend of mine made me a T-shirt and it said on the front, what time do you get up in the morning? And on the back it said, 3 o'clock, thank you for asking. Because people ask me so much. Yeah, 3 o'clock in the morning you get up.
And how's this natural life going? Because that's both the programme and your life now.
It is both the programme. Yeah, well, I love doing it. It was an idea I had for a series after I left the Today programme. And I'd always noticed that if you do an interview outdoors in a place that means something to people, you get a completely different quality of interview. You've probably noticed it yourselves if you're going on a walk with somebody and you're both looking ahead. It feels very, very different. So I've gone all over the country. I was recently in Fair Isle in Scotland with puffins, talking to an illustrator, Angela Harding. I was with Charlotte Church in the middle of Wales, and that was a lovely moment because she's founded a retreat there, and she's a real laugh and very good fun. She's a very infectious giggle throughout a lot of the programme. And I went off into the woods with her, and she talked about communing with the woods, and I said, well, how far do you go? And she said, I sing.
Communing with the woods.
Woods.
Excuse a splash of journalistic scepticism about a phrase like that. Is that talking to trees?
Yeah, talking to trees and singing to trees. And I got her to sing. And actually, when her voice is so beautiful, however skeptical you might be about the talking to trees business, once she started singing, it was a kind of goosebump moment. It was really incredible.
Did she sing her well-known pop single, Sexy Chick? I prefer her pop to her opera. And Martha, I noticed on your social media profile now, you say you're a recovering news addict.
Yes.
How's that process of recovery going?
Well, I listen to you guys. I still listen to the Today programme every morning. I read a lot of the papers, but I'm doing it in a completely different way. So I'm doing it as much more as a regular viewer, listener, consumer of news, instead of that absolute, having to have the grasp of detail, totally immersing. And I tell you when I really noticed it was coming back from holiday, and you will know what this is like, is even if you think you're staying on top of the news, you're never quite as immersed in it. So you have this awful moment where you come back and you spend the day before work trying to find out everything that's really gone on, because people don't think, oh, Martha didn't do a very good interview, she's been on holiday. They just think, that was really terrible. So you lose instantly the relaxation effect of a holiday.
Is there a thing, though, because one thing I'm conscious of in doing day-to-day news and being immersed in every little detail of it is that there is a slight danger of being, or more than a slight danger, of being increasingly detached from the people we're broadcasting to, who perfectly reasonably have lives to lead and jobs to do and children to bring up, etc., etc. And we are breathlessly recounting the latest micro detail, and it'd be perfectly reasonable for a listener to have missed the previous 5 steps because they only turned on this time yesterday. Do you find yourself having a perspective that you didn't have when you were immersed in it?
No, I completely, and I don't want to be one of those people who leave the work and start criticising from the sidelines. But something I noticed recently in the political debate about benefits. I have a younger brother who's learning disabled, and he's on personal independent payment PIP. And it was really hard to find out what the proposal was. Now, you're going to tell me, I'm sure you said it many times, but there seemed to be an awful lot more coverage about the number of MPs who are going to rebel and what it'll mean for the Labour Party. And as a kind of punter, as a consumer, I wanted to find out, is Peter's benefit going to be cut? Sure. And I think, and I've been the breathless person dashing onto Newsnight going, the head of the Conservative backbench committee on the Treasury is going to resign, Jeremy, and he'd be like, calm down, Martha, exactly. So I think there is that. I mean, I don't think you do it, actually, Chris. I think you're very good at being able to translate those very complicated stories to a general audience. But there is a bit of a Westminster bubble kind of mania where every twist and turn in the detail of the story overtakes the substance.
And also then on the flip side of that, in that story, maybe another voice that's missing is taxpayers who are like, well, actually, I don't understand this system. I want to reach a judgment about whether it's a good value system that's run well. And actually, because the whole thing was about the government being on the defensive because the rebels were in the ascendant, but that's where the political row disguised the actual substantive discussion about what we spend on what.
Yeah.
I noticed on the way here this morning, there's a lot of Westminster news stories literally physically visible in Suffolk, because you get, as well as the signs for latitude, you get the signs for Sizewell C. And you then realize, oh, wow, we talk about it in the studio as a sort of, yeah, we know it's a big infrastructure project, but actually people will be driving past those signs on that building site for a very, very long time, and the people living nearby will have quite a lot of disruption. Then I saw a sign for a big solar farm that's being built, and then I saw some banners for campaigns about new pylons and transmission lines that are going to be built for all this renewable energy. So I thought, yeah, like Ed Miliband's goal of getting us to net zero electricity by the end of the decade. You actually physically see it in Suffolk in a way that you wouldn't see it in a town.
No, and those are all huge issues here in East Anglia. I think it's 150 miles of pylons coming down. And interestingly, in a session I was just watching as part of the nature writing series we're doing all day, there was a woman who lives in Theberton, which is very near where Sizewell C is going to be, and she's talking about the miles of roads around her. And there was a guy from the RSPB Minsmere, which is an amazing bird reserve. And, you know, he was saying they've been opposing it. He says, of course, we understand the need for renewable energy, but when it's in your backyard, it makes a big difference.
You talked about the nature workshops that you're doing here at Latitude. Is it true one of them was with a guy who can do like really good bird calls?
Yes, he's called Nick Atchison, and he's from the Norfolk Wildlife Trust, and he's written a book called The Meaning of Geese. And he's slightly sick of doing his goose impersonations, it has to be said. But the presenter of the session agreed. And I'm going to try and play you a little bit. This is going to go hopelessly wrong. Anyway, here is a goose impersonation. Right.
This is what the Today programme's missing out on.
Yeah. Well, I think you need to
Can't hear it.
Put it like that. Put it like that. Oh, hang on.
Oh, I've managed to cut it off.
Why don't you recreate it?
Russian, they come from Western Siberia as well, and they sort of go yik 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 yik. It's kind of a repetitive role.
Very good.
You get the general idea. Anyway,
we're going to have a flock of geese descending on this tent now to come and see their brethren.
He was talking about there's an incredible migration of pink-footed geese. 60,000, I think, arrive on the North Norfolk coast, and they're trying to get what's called the East Coast Highway designated as a World Heritage UNESCO site because it's such an important pathway for migrating birds all, from Siberia all the way here. Yeah.
Lovely. I think Chris at Westminster...
He said lovely, not that sincerely, I'm going to say. She's just banging on about geese.
I'm still just shocked by the geese impression. Chris, I was actually just thinking about how we could have a conversation about nature and politics, because it's sort of climate change comes up a lot because it's the frame for a lot of the decisions this government is making and the previous governments too. Nature comes up when a group of, I don't know, backbench Labour MPs who are very much in favour of more economic growth say, oh, our regulations are holding back house building. But actually nature itself, and like the things that Martha was just talking about there, sort of don't feature that much, do they?
They tend to have a kind of walk-on part in other conversations, don't they? And I suppose there will be those who will argue that that's a problem and that they ought to be more kind of front and centre. So as you say, they'll come up in a conversation about house building. They'll come up in the context of a big infrastructure project. They'll come up at the moment in the context, in fact, the Prime Minister and others have been going out of the way to deride the bat tunnel of the HS2 project, haven't they? To sort of deride what they would see as overly, far too much awareness and consciousness of spending vast amounts of money to mitigate what they would see as relatively minor sort of wildlife mitigations associated with a big infrastructure project. But yeah, it's an interesting thought, isn't it? The extent to which perhaps it sits as a walk-on part rather than a central part, Martha, of political debate.
And certainly the government has come under a lot of criticism from the nature lobby, if you like. Although, interesting, one thing I think that they have agreed to do, which has been a lot of lobbying for some time, including from Mary Colwell, who's here, who writes about curlews, is to introduce a natural history GCSE. And I think that is going to come in, which I think would be a very interesting part of the curriculum and could be very popular.
Your love of bees was very well known when you were on the Today programme and when you were being a political journalist. Did you meet any other famous politicians who also loved bees? Did it open doors?
Just trying to think. There is a House of Commons all-party beekeeping group.
Oh, I didn't know about that one. Did they have a hive?
Who was in it?
Is it
Hugo Swire, do you remember him?
Yes.
Whose
Yes.
wife wrote the notorious diaries.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think bees featured very much in that. There was plenty of other things she was
Birds
talking
and
about.
bees, yeah.
But he once gave me a jar of honey. So that there are, and I think there is House of Commons. I mean, there are hives on many buildings around London. But there's quite. In fact, I just saw from a distance. There's Jane Horrocks, the actress. I think she's got a bee podcast.
Has she?
Yeah, and for This Natural Life, I interviewed Kate Blanchett, who's a massive beekeeper.
Oh, yes.
They get everywhere. Scarlett Johansson's a beekeeper.
I think I saw the
Morgan Freeman.
I think I saw the Beckhams in the whole beekeeping sort of spaceman suit garb thing. Is that what you call it?
Yes. Spaceman garb. Yeah, that's a technical term for it. Yeah.
What was Kate Blanchett like? I love her.
I love her. I so wanted to be. I interviewed her for the Today programme, actually, and for the news channel about a film she was in. And I brought her. This is like deliberate attempt to suck up. I bought a jar of my apple jelly before the interview, and she said, "Oh, I should have given you a jar of my honey." And I went, "What, honey?" And then we talked a lot about bees. And then I was trying to get her on This Natural Life, and her agent said, "Well, she wants a Zoom call." So we spoke for an hour about bees, and she said, "Okay, I'll do this programme with you." And I interviewed her down at Wakehurst, which is the Royal Botanic Gardens Kews place in Sussex. And we went round, and I so badly wanted to be her friend. I think her friend list is full. But anyway, she was incredibly nice. And then we went to look at the beehives, and we put on the space garb, as you so sweetly describe it, Chris. And I looked, the usual thing you look like in a beekeeping outfit, like a kind of Michelin man, bloated, ugly. She put hers on, and she looked absolutely amazing. She had yellow sunglasses and a cinched waist. It's like she is so stylish and really clever and properly interested in nature, not like sort of greenwashing celebrity kind of thing. She's done it for a long time. For example, when she ran the theatre company in Sydney, she installed solar panels. This was 25 years ago. But she's properly committed.
Thank you very much to the Newscast crew who've been making this episode. Thanks to you guys. Thank you to Latitude for having us in their big tent. Thanks to Martha for joining us. Thanks to you for being here with us, watching us record this episode. And thank you to you for listening it. We'll be back with another episode of Newscast very soon. This weekend is the debut of the latest series of Old Newscast. So we're going to be going back to, I recorded it the other day. Oh yeah, Nelson Mandela's release from prison, which is going to be amazing because we did it with Fergal Keane, who then went to South Africa to cover the aftermath of that. And it was a bit more of a complicated period than I remember it being from being a kid. So listen to Old Newscast coming your way in the Newscast feed very soon. Bye.